Are you thinking about buying a home? Here's everything you need to know about buying. Whether you're a first-time buyer or experienced at buying and selling homes, this is what you will need to know and what you would expect when buying a home. This is Joel McElhaney with Exit Realty Specialist, and I'm happy to guide you through buying a home. Step number one, talk to a realtor. That is me. A lot of people think the first step is looking at a home, but it's actually the fourth step. You might say, why would I talk to a realtor first? Well, it's important because we need to explain to you the process of buying a home, especially in the current market. It is so important that you understand the steps and we go in the right order. Because if you go in the wrong order, it could spell disaster for your first home purchase. Another reason you need a realtor is because we are licensed to trade in real estate in the province of New Brunswick. And if you're planning to buy a home that's listed on MLS, you want to have representation. You want to have agency. So if you're just calling the listing realtor, you're not getting full representation. As a buyer, you want someone fully dedicated to serving your needs, finding the perfect home for you that is fully representing you and trying to get the best deal for you. And that's us. That's what realtors are for. And this is typically something that is included in the purchase price, so it's no out-of-pocket expense to give us a call. Why hire me? Well, I'm the realtor that cares. I really do care about every one of my clients, and I'm here to help guide you with expert advice through the process of buying. I'm not really trying to sell you a house as much as I am providing a service, giving you good information so you can make informed decisions. And I come with a wealth of experience with over 20 plus years in the real estate industry. I have tons of experience on the commercial side and many years of experience now doing residential. And when you're looking to buy in this market with things the way they are, quickly changing and so much competition, you really need someone in your court looking out for your best interests. And that's me. Step number two, get pre-approved. So a mortgage pre-approval is so important. I can't stress this enough. And after you talk to your realtor, it is really the second most important step that you're going to take when it comes to buying your first home. There is no point in looking at a house. There is no point in going any further until we know what is your affordability factor. What is your budget? What are you comfortable spending? And how much is the bank going to give you? Because with this information, we can then tailor searches and a plan based on affordability and based on your budget that makes sense for you. Otherwise, it's kind of like going shopping for something without any knowledge of how much money is in our wallet or our bank account. No one does that, right? When you go to the store to buy something, you always know how much money you have as to whether you can afford that item. Similarly with buying a home, and this is probably your biggest purchase you're ever going to make. So it's so important to be financially ready, to understand how much money you have to work with, what the bank is going to loan you, and how much you need to have in cash to make this purchase happen. Because you cannot buy a house fully loaned. You have to have some cash, at least 5%, slightly more in most cases, to buy a home. When it comes to getting pre-approved, there's two main ways you can go about this. The first one is go to your bank that you deal with and ask to be pre-approved for a mortgage. It's likely that you carry other things with this bank. Perhaps you have a checking account, perhaps you have a credit card, maybe a line of credit. So they would have some credit history on you already. So there are advantages in keeping everything under one roof when it comes to finances. However, there are also benefits to going outside and shopping for the best rate. With rates being what they are today, it is important to understand how you can get the best rate and the best mortgage product to suit your needs. There are various different lenders, banks, and mortgage companies that you can talk to that can offer you various different rates and services depending on your needs. Also, some major banks may not approve you where a mortgage broker may, because they have access to different types of lenders. B lenders, for example, oftentimes will be able to mortgage you where a national bank will not. So it is important to understand this and go shopping for the best deal. If you're looking for a recommendation, I'm here to help. I have a huge list of banks and mortgage brokers that would be happy to assist you. When it comes to getting pre-approved, here's what you should expect. They're going to ask you for some personal information. They are going to need to know how much money you make. They are going to want proof of this. They're going to want tax records. They will want your identification. It does seem like a lot, but this is very important because they need to know everything about you so they can determine your credit worthiness, how much you can afford, how much you make, etc. Don't be alarmed by this. This is all very confidential and very normal process to go through. Step 3 is the perfect house questionnaire. That's something I do exclusively with my clients where I ask them, what are they looking for? This questionnaire helps me narrow down the area, the size, the amenities, the different things about the home that you're looking for. Are you people that like to entertain? Are you someone that wants a lot of privacy? Do you want to live in the city, outside the city, rural, suburban? In a city setting, what is your vibe? What are you looking for? That helps me send you the listings that make the most sense for you. Step 4, view properties. Again, a lot of people think that's the first step. It's actually the 4th step because we don't go shopping until we know what we can afford. So it's at this point that we do the exciting part and we actually take you to homes. We show you various homes that meet your budget expectations, and then we decide which one we like the best. Once we've found a home that we like, we're going to write an offer on that property. That is an agreement of purchase and sale that I will help you draft and send to the sellers for their review. This will be the time where I'm going to ask you about various different conditions. Do we want an inspection? Do we want insurance? Are we going to test the water? Are there any other special considerations? Is there a pool? Are there things that need to be repaired or done? This is all going to be in the offer, the agreement of purchase and sale that we submit for approval to the sellers. Our next step is to negotiate the terms. So not every time when we send an agreement of purchase and sale does it come back 100% approved. Oftentimes there's some back and forth. Terms and conditions to be negotiated. Closing date, for example. The number of days you need to complete your conditions, such as finance, inspection, insurance, property disclosure review. All of these things take time. Typically, the time for reviewing and assessing the house is going to be 7 to 10 business days. Also, keep in mind, banks typically do need 7 to 10 days minimum to approve a mortgage, even if you're already pre-approved. Step number 7 is very exciting. We now have an accepted offer. That means we've submitted an offer to the sellers. The sellers and the buyers have negotiated the terms. The terms have been agreed to, and an agreement of purchase and sale has been signed. But we are not there yet. We are not sold yet. This is just the beginning of the process. We then need to fulfill the conditions. That is step number 8. That is where we look at finances, insurance, inspection, and do a water test depending on if the house has a well. This, again, is a process that is very involved and it can take up to 2 weeks. If we can do it quicker, we certainly will try, but let's expect this to be 7 to 14 business days, depending on your particular scenario. Step number 9, this is probably my favorite part. This is exciting because this is what we call firming up the sale. This is when the sold sign is put up on the property. It's at this point that we've fulfilled our conditions. So now I have in my hands a letter of mortgage approval from your bank or your mortgage lender. I have a deposit check in my hand, usually in a bank draft form, for at least 5% of the value of the property. I have a letter of insurability from your insurance provider. I have a water test showing that the water is potable. Also, we have the property disclosure statement signed and reviewed, saying we've looked at the history of this house. We've had the property inspected. The bank has approved. The mortgage company has approved. The insurance company has approved. We are ready to step forward. We now have the deposit money in hand. We submit all of this paperwork to the seller's realtor, and then the seller's realtor will put up a sold sign. This is kind of the point where we all get excited and the house is considered sold, but yet again, we are not done. Next is closing day. You might think this is the final step, but it is not. Closing day is simply the day that the lawyers complete the sale. The money is transferred from the buyers to the sellers. Money gets put in the accounts where it needs to go. The title of the property is transferred to the new person, the new buyer, and everything gets registered with the government. It goes on the land title system, and the keys are turned over. I would want you to expect that on closing day, it will take most of the day. So, usually the night before or the morning of closing, we're going to go and do a final walkthrough. The point of this final walkthrough is to determine if the house is in the same state of condition and repair as it was when we originally viewed the property. So this is not to be confused with a property inspection. That is during the conditional period. So this is just a final walkthrough. We're making sure nothing was damaged or taken from the home that was supposed to remain. It's one final look before the transaction is completed. Again, usually takes most of the day. The keys will be handed to you toward the end of the day. I recommend that you do not plan your moving company any installs of utilities or anything on that day, because typically it takes most of the day to close. You won't get the keys till 4 or 5 o'clock. And by that point, most of these services are closed, and you're going to want to move not in the middle of the night or in the evening. You're going to want to move during the day. So schedule your move, your physical moving of your stuff, usually the next day makes the most sense, if at all possible. And that is the final step, moving in, which is such a fun day. And that is how you buy a house in St. John, New Brunswick. Hope you enjoyed. If you like this content and want more information, message me or click the links below. Let's talk about some frequently asked questions that buyers have. The first one is now a good time to buy in St. John? That is a great question. A lot of people think there's a specific time and place where I should buy a house based on what the market is doing, the prevailing interest rates, and all these kinds of factors. Well, if I had a crystal ball to know when the best market timing was for you to buy a house to maximize your overall investment, then I would not be sitting here now. That said, there are a lot of factors that we can look at, and this is something you should consider, interest rates, etc. But you know when the best time to buy a home? It's when you can afford to buy a home. The market is always changing. Interest rates are going up and down. Market values go up and down over time. And so the best time to get in the real estate market is when you can afford to, especially given the current climate where affordability is at an all-time low. So if you are a person who can afford to buy a home now in anywhere in Canada, especially in St. John, now is the time to buy, because there are so many people that would literally give their right arm to be able to afford a home and they can't. So if that's you, if you're already pre-approved and you have a down payment, you are ahead of the game and the time is now. This question is really good. I kind of addressed it already, but I will hit it again. What would you say to someone who is thinking of waiting for prices to drop before buying? Waiting for prices to drop. So I have had people say this to me. I got this question a lot during the pandemic when prices escalated quickly. So, if we historically look at properties over the last 20 years before the pandemic, it would have been common for a home to appreciate 2 to 3% per year in value based on the consumer price index, based on inflation, etc. But we all know what happened during the pandemic. Inflation went crazy. Interest rates were at an all-time low and people were stuck at home. So they are very much focused on their home, their living space. And a lot of people wanted bigger homes. They wanted to right size, downsize, upsize, you name it. They wanted to do it. They were at home. But prices were high. So they were all saying, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. They have been waiting now for 4 years and have actually cost themselves tens of thousands of dollars in equity that they could have had, and the average price of a home has increased exponentially in the last number of years, and it's only going to continue to increase. There is no end in sight to the housing shortage, to pricing, etc. So again, if you're waiting for the price of a home to drop, you are going to be waiting a very long time. This next question is very common. Some buyers are concerned they need 20% down to purchase a home. Is that true? Actually, that is not true. You do not need to put 20% down any longer to buy a home. The minimum down payment currently in Canada is 5%. There are also a bunch of government incentives for first time buyers where you can pull that 5% from RRSPs or different investments. There is also a program for first time homebuyers, and there is a way to save money tax free in TFSAs. First time homebuyers also have access to a program where you can put money into a tax free first time home buying account. Also, a great option. So, there's so many options, and you certainly do not need 20%. In fact, you may be more eligible than you think, especially if you can pull money out of investments. Another common question is, what are the best neighborhoods or what neighborhood should I live in? That is a great question. And so there's no one particular answer because every person is unique in terms of their needs. Some people prefer to be closer to the city, closer to certain schools, closer to their work. Other people want to be far away from these things. They want to be far away from the city, far away from people. They want to live on the Kingston Peninsula and take a ferry to work every day. It varies greatly based on the person. So there's no one good answer to that. But I would say that that is the process of hiring the realtor myself, getting my advice. Let's talk about your needs and wants and tailoring the right neighborhood to fit your budget, your preferences, etc. Because neighborhoods also come with different price points. There are average prices per neighborhood. And so sometimes I'm going to recommend a neighborhood because it is in the right budget for you. Other times, it's going to be more about what amenities are available. It's going to be about distance from things. These are all factors. So there's no one particular neighborhood that's better or worse. It really is specific to each client and what their particular needs and wants are. So there's neighborhoods in terms of preference for distance, amenities, etc. But price is a big factor. So when we're looking at price, depending on your budget, the neighborhood is going to be important. So the most expensive neighborhood right now is Rossay-Quispam-Sis, then comes Milledgeville, and then comes the East Side, West Side, and Grand Bay Westfield. Not in that order necessarily. If you're looking for the most or least expensive home, you're going to want to look at the Lower West Side. That is currently the least expensive place. So if you are budget conscious, there's probably a property for you on the Lower West Side. Then there's neighborhoods like Greendale, East Side, Champlain Heights, those kinds of areas that are sort of very average price. They're around 300,000, very accessible to a lot of people. And there's various different pros and cons to the East Side versus West Side versus Milledgeville or going to Grand Bay or to Rossay-Quispam-Sis. Milledgeville is a great area within the city because it has all levels of different types of properties at all different price points. You have very high end, very expensive million plus homes on the waterfront, yet you have very affordable townhouses, garden homes, etc. So if you're looking to rent, buy, and no matter really what budget or preference you have, I probably have a property for you in Milledgeville. Milledgeville also has its proximity to the hospital, to the university, and to very close to Uptown. There's also Uptown, which is a great decision for those of you that enjoy the nightlife. You want to not have to have a car and be able to walk to things like the city market, go to restaurants. This is a great option for you. There's so many historic homes as well. There's lots of apartments. There's so many options in a lot of different price points in the St. John Uptown area as well. A lot of people say, I want good schools or I have small children, so I need a yard and I need space. So there's so many options for you as well. There's great schools all over the place. Grand Bay Westfield is a very quiet town with great schools. Good option if you're looking to raise children that's outside the city. It's probably the furthest out of the major popular areas that we talk about. Rossay-Quispam-Sis, again, rated one of the best communities. It's not that far from the city, about 15 or 20 minutes. Great schools, great location, a little more expensive. If you're in the city, East Side is always a good option. It's close to shopping, close to schools, and everything you could possibly need right there. Can you share a story about a first time buyer you helped to find the perfect neighborhood? I remember one of my very first clients was such a good example. They came to me, and this client was very young. I'm going to say like 20, 21 years old, had just finished school, but had a fairly good job. But still, hadn't built their career. It was their first job. They were making just sort of like an average salary. They may have had some student debt, I'm not sure. But they came to me and said, "Look, Joel, I'm wanting to buy a house, but I think it's like a year away." So I remember sitting with them at Starbucks, and I believe it was the winter time. And it was so neat to be able to hand them the keys like 3 or 4 months later. We were actually able to get them in a home much quicker. And they ended up going on the east side. They bought a 2 unit. So there was an apartment in the home that helps cover the cost of their mortgage. It was so neat how they were able to get in a house in a neighborhood that they like, in a home that generated income, that made their first purchase so perfect. What are some common mistakes you see first time buyers make, and how can we avoid them? I think the biggest mistake is they call me and they want to go look at this house because it's their dream house, and they haven't done their homework. They haven't gone and got pre approved. They haven't thought about their budget. They haven't thought about um, the down payment or the cash needed to close. There's a bunch of hidden costs when it comes to buying a home. And it's not just the price of the home. You need to anticipate that at closing, there's going to be several $1,000s worth of expenses because you have to pay the property taxes, you have to pay your lawyer, that's about $1,000. There's a 1% land transfer tax, that is 1% of the value of the home. So if you're looking at a $300,000 home, that's $3,000 alone just for the land transfer tax. And you haven't paid your property tax yet, your lawyer, or any other adjustments. If there's fuel or anything like that, you need to reimburse the seller for that full tank of heating oil, that full tank of propane, or whatever manner the home is heated in. So there's a bunch of different costs associated to the closing that some people may not be aware of. So in addition to the down payment, you also need $5,000 or $6,000 roughly, or they say 3 or 4% of the value of the home, also in cash, saved and set aside for closing day. So the next question is about hidden costs for first-time buyers. I think one thing people don't realize is the inspection's about $600. The water test is $150. You have to pay your lawyer about $1,000. There's a land transfer tax of 1% of the value of the home. You have to reimburse the seller for any utilities that are prepaid, which is your property taxes, your water and sewer. You have to reimburse for fuel, for propane, these kinds of things. And that can add up quickly. So there is an amount of money that needs to be set aside for closing day that we do have to make sure we have prior to closing, really prior to even buying the house. We need to have an idea, and I can get you a very close number. I actually have spreadsheets that can calculate this for you. So if you're interested in that, give me a call and I can go through that in even more detail, believe it or not. Do's and don'ts for first time buyers. So do get pre approved. Don't just jump at the first house you see. Make sure you hire a realtor. And by hire, I just mean call a realtor, get advice. As a buyer, you should not call the listing agent. I see this so often where buyers are like, "I don't need a realtor. I'll just call the realtor that's listing the property." Isn't that better? You can do that. And if you have a relationship with that realtor, that's fine. But I believe it is in your best interest to find a realtor that you know, like, and trust that will represent you as a buyer. Now, the cost of that is built into the cost of the home. So you do not need to worry about paying that realtor because they will get paid at closing by the seller. However, if you contact the realtor that's listing the home, they are now representing both sides of the equation, and that isn't always in your best interest. If someone's feeling overwhelmed by the buying process, my best advice would be get a realtor. That's what we're here. We are here to take the stress out of it. We are here to hold your hand, walk you through step by step, explain everything, provide our expert advice. We do this every day. So you shouldn't expect that you're going to know. You're only probably going to buy a few homes over the course of your life. So you don't do it every day and you're not expected to be the expert. We are the expert. Lean on us, our expertise, and our knowledge of the market to help take a lot of that stress away. That's why we're here. We'd be happy to help you. Again, we do this every day, so it's not stressful for us like it is for you.